This is called Jew Me Up, Jew Me Down, Kabbalah music at the heart of inking. What is it that makes a work Jewy? A question I've been negotiating for the past 20 years, but I've come to see that even if I'm not writing about the Western Wall, the Shin, the Shoah, the Shmata, or Yiddishing up like a Kabbalah, Boston, Bala, Busta, I'm always vajezzling my jewels, vajeweling my ideologically squishy kosher kitsch with parse, pulse, please, laced with socio-political cultural shards, fragments of history. So whether the work is thematically Jewish or not, what it comes down to is a sense of being out of place. As a neo-Fluxus Florfian post-language conceptualist, I like playing in many playgrounds. Intraphonemically festive and multimediatic, I'm drawing from multiple sources, voices, eras, histories, lineages, lexicons, and interlocuted on screens, mirrors, phones, walls. It's nomadic, vagrant, panoptically recreating its own eras, borders, orders, limits, laws, flaws, low-lying and high-def, all webbed up and beaten down, intratextual and hyperlinked, ramshackled and shuckling. It says, Jew-be, Jew-be, Jew. It's a Jewy jamboree, a jazzed-up juiceria, and a mesencini panacea that is cannibalizing itself through its own lateral feed nodes. So even though it's not always talking about Jewy things, it's very focused on how it's always a part of and apart from, cut off and into, like the mark of circumcision. And as I cut, bind, separate, and connect through incisions, sever, semiological slips, ellipse, press, cross, kiss, crease, cryptic skits, this hermeneutic cut, this very cut that in Kabbalistic terms brings meaning into the world, is synectic of how language is always belonging and not belonging. It's always between multiple cultures and traditions, renditions and recodings, and creates an ever-shifting, undefinable writing of linguistic innovation and contamination, all translatable, mutatable, where subjectivity slips between difference, appliance, appearance, and does not possess some portable and universal context, but functions with transgression, invasion, contradiction, and ambiguity, like a red tag day at the Taliban marché, or a very plus parfait Jew parfait, because it was just born this way. Now you might say, hey, wait, all this mixing is not allowed. Take various laws of kashrut, and particularly the laws of shatnez, which basically forbids the wearing of cloth that is both wool and linen, and thus seemingly implies that this mixing of foreign elements, this adulteration, this perversity is unclean. But it turns out, and maybe Jake and Shoshana and Joy would disagree with me here, but apparently the rules against mixtures are survivals of ancient magical taboos, and that mixtures were originally considered to be holy, derived from the holiness code, Leviticus 17-26. Thus, reinterpreted in my way, to mix is to engage in a holy act, and all splayed out on the mixing table, I am cutting and pasting and harding and sampling and forming constellations of links and subversions, excursions, writing a writing that doesn't even know how Jewish it is. Another example. According to Kabbalah, 13th century Jewish mysticism, the world was not created, but formed. Breshit, bara, not in the beginning, but with the beginning, formed not out of nothing, ex nihilo, but a nothingness that contained everything, yesh, meyesh, something from something. The world was created from that which was always already there. Matter folded into itself, producing a series of frames and brackets, borders, pockets, parameters from that which always already existed. And from that which always already existed is not only how the world was formed, but uncannily how all the conceptualism and flarf operates. Conceptual poetry, as practiced by Kenny Goldsmith, Rob Bitterman, championed by Charles Bernstein and Marjorie Perloff, also Jews, engage in a process of not so much creation, but reformation, a reframing of the mass cultural glut of information. So whether it's weather reports or jury transcriptions or repurposed song lyrics. Similarly, Flarf, its Gothic sister, draws its inspiration, lexicon, idiom from Google searches, from that which was always there. Cool, right? So whether it's reworking Shakespearean sonnets, Rogaine bunnies, unicorn boners, freaky deaky dwarves, Pokemon and chicken peanuts, Leonard Skinner's bowls, or peppermint jihad, it's taking all the free floating language out there just begging to be turned into poetry, reframing, repurposing, reprocessing, like it how it says in Kabbalah in reference to the Tzimtzum, from that which was always already there, taking the familiar and making it strange. Verfremdungsdefekt, Ostrani poetry is actually engaging in a very holy act, a sacred practice dating back to the 2nd century. And walking this line between what is holy and what is asura, forbidden, is something I seem to gravitate towards quite a lot. So whether it's writing a love song to Osama bin Laden or practicing an adulterated version of Chokhmah Hatzaruf, the Abulafian practice of linguistic play, I am engaging in an ancient cultural praxis of permutation and combination where I'm focusing on the letters and their configurations, and I am combining them into swift motion, which heats up your thinking and increases your joy and desire so much that when you don't crave food or sleep and all other desires are annihilated and, oh my God, and nothing exists except the letters, and through which the world is being recreated through a continual process of constructing and reconstructing borders and laws and mirrors and screens, walls through a caterwaulery of lolling scrawls, brawling sprawls of extracted, maculate, bracketed tracks, hack fractures. So no, I may not be writing poems about my bubby or Shabbos or chicken soup, but in accordance with the strictures of Chokhmah Hatzaruf, I am traveling inside the words, within words, traces, affects, projections, sliding and slipping between forces and intensities distributed through the text syntactic economy, metonymic of the continuous process of mistranslation that goes on every day in our lives, and how information is always born from itself, and how meaning and articulation unveils itself in an ever-spiraling, re-scrolled space where the past is palimpsested, repassed or passed in an irrepresentable present, non-present, or resonant present that continually escapes itself into a promise of memory, of tradition, of heritage, of cultural knowledge, virally replicating itself, reminding us to play inside the lexical excess, the flirty flexicon of fixity mixes and nexuses and nexus and nexus, diaxis of lexically sugared circuits, showing how you can't take the Jew out of the jouissance. So whether the focus is on the shmat, how the shmata is both a rag and a text, or how the kotel is structured like a language, or how the telephone is a deeply religious instrument binding the technologies of the past with the asemic dysemia of the poetic avant-garde, whether Kabbalistic or conceptual or flarfy, the work is foregrounding how the future is always arriving from itself in an excess of transcriptions, translations, in a non-history of absolute beginnings, celebrating all that is nomadic and vagrant and on the edge, where language, like sparks of light, and moved from one vessel to another, one frame to another, and the poem becomes a polysemous repurposer for words to be poured into, flow out of, becomes like a mishkan in the desert, a temporary framing, signaling multiple dislocations, translations, serrations, cushions and embodies all the lingual confusions and frustrations and ecstasies as they merge as cultural palimpsests, showing how one can live in the interstices, the aparias, in a superfluity of folds, in the unheimlich space of multiple systems and social and cultural signification, live in a hybridized space, a syncretic space between religious and irreligious idioms that doesn't close down, but builds dialogue and celebrates its deterritorialization and recognizing that it's always out of place because traditions are always changing and the borders are fluid and flux fleeting, and thus the writing is always already between domains, between forms, between homes, between languages. And I say, bring it on. Give me a writing that celebrates its otherness and all that is dirty and disheveled and impure and has horns and that has been excised, silenced, and left out, all that has been deemed unworthy, unartful, or politically problematic. Give me a writing that offers the latest in decapitalized, ultra-portable, pimped-up conceptualism, all bejeweled and cabalicious, and is forever drawing on the kindness of strangers. Yay. Thank you.